They thought Earth was weak, insignificant, forgotten. But when the stars turned cold, humanity reminded them who we really are. Aliens took Earth's oceans. We took their planet. Beneath the dome, life on a thirsting planet. The dome shimmered like a false sky, humming with alien energy. Beneath it, New Atacama stretched in silent desperation, a city of cracked glass towers, solar nets, and vapor harvesters. The ocean was gone. The sand beneath their feet had once been a thriving coast. Now it was bone dust. Families lived in dome shelters that caught fog from the morning winds, squeezing out drops of drinkable moisture. Children played with sand-filtered water in ration cups, never knowing the sound of waves or the scent of salt. Showers were a mist, just enough to stay clean. Every drop mattered. People prayed to condensation units, cursed the thinning filters, and lived with a constant thirst, not just of the body, but of memory. Hope was rare. Desperation was routine. Still, humanity endured. Under every dome was a will forged from loss. The woman who watched the oceans die. Captain Mara Thorne stood at the top of the hydro-sensor deck. The cracked horizon stretched before her like a wound. She remembered when this place had tides. She'd been a marine biologist once, cataloging coral reefs and whispering to dolphins through sonic arrays. That life was over. Now she wore alloy-plated armor, her skin etched with sun and scars. Her heart, heavier than her weapons, carried the weight of vanished blue. Every mission she led was haunted by the memory of sea spray and the silence that replaced it. Mara was more than a soldier. She was a witness. She watched the oceans die, and she would not let their killers forget it. The day the sky drowned. The sky had always warned them, but Earth didn't listen. It began with a shimmer, an aurora that wrapped the equator. Then came the silence. Not a storm, not a flood, just vanishing. The oceans rose into the sky like a reverse storm surge. Water defied gravity, spiraling into orbit, pulled by massive arrays built by hands not human. The Thalkai had come, not as conquerors, but as zealots. To them, water was divine, sacred. Earth's oceans, untouched by galactic pollution, were seen as holy relics. They never fired a shot, no armies landed. They just took. Quantum siphon arrays bloomed in space like alien flowers. In weeks, coastlines became deserts. Fish fell from the sky like rain. Cities that thrived on ports became tombs. Billions died, not from war, but from thirst. To the Thalkai, it was ceremony. To Earth, it was apocalypse.
You did not value the gift. We do. The message came from the Thalkai High Speaker. No images, just a voice like cold starlight. You did not value the gift. We do. It echoed across every satellite, every surviving screen. Not a threat, a declaration. They called the ocean's sacred flow, Earth's misuse, its dams, its plastics, its wars, was blasphemy. They were not thieves, they were priests, ritual scavengers. There was no reply from Earth, only silence. The silence of grief, the silence of fury brewing behind dry lips. When humanity almost turned on itself, the world fractured. Nations collapsed. Water wars erupted in every corner. Ice reserves became fortresses. Blood was spilled for buckets. Families drank from sewage, licked dew off leaves, traded children for canisters. Civil wars ignited. Cities burned for control of desalination plants. Governments fell. In the chaos, despair won. Mass suicide surged. Humanity teetered on extinction, not from aliens, but from itself. And then, a miracle. In a forgotten lab beneath Iceland's crust, Engineers and physicists cracked the alien code. They reversed a Thalkai reactor, turned it from a siphon to a source. The first drop of synthesized water fell into a child's palm, and hope returned. Unity was born in that drop, not from leaders, but from survivors. Earth rallied, not to beg, but to build. The rise of Fleet Reclamation 1. Above Mars, something shimmered. Not a dome, not a siphon, a ship. Fleet Reclamation 1 stood like a blade aimed at the stars, steel forged from human fury, curved with stolen alien elegance, hybrid tech, human spirit, Thalkai secrets. Every ship in the fleet bore names of drowned cities: Mumbai, Venice, Jakarta, New York. On their hulls, barnacle patterns and coral shapes, a tribute and a promise. Inside, warriors trained, scientists calibrated resonance disruptors. Mara Thorne walked the halls, her voice calm, her orders absolute. They weren't just going to reclaim water, they were going to rewrite the ritual. Make them understand what they took. Mara stood before the Revenant. It wasn't vengeance she felt, not truly. It was something colder, sharper. Make them understand what they took, she whispered, running her hand over the ship's hull. She wasn't aiming for war. She aimed for comprehension. The Thalkai had stolen more than water. They stole rhythm, memory, childhood, futures unborn. Now Earth was ready, not with fire alone, but with story, survival, and storm. They took our oceans. We took their world.
The stars split apart as the Earth fleet burst from fold space. Before them stretched Thalkar, a world of water without end. No continents, no peaks, only an endless sea under roiling violet storms and flashes of crimson lightning. The surface boiled with life. Bioluminescent waves danced like auroras. Thalkai ships, colossal and living, surged from beneath the surface, organic dreadnoughts with skin like pearl and motion like beasts of legend. Mara Thorne stood at the viewport of the Revenant, jaw clenched. The weight of Earth rode on her shoulders. Her fingers tightened around the rail as she stared down the ocean world that stole everything. Thalkar, she whispered, you drank our tides. Let's see how you handle fire. Behind her, the fleet shimmered, angular earth steel fused with the flowing curves of stolen alien tech. Each ship pulsed with blue reactors, reverse engineered from the very thieves who drained their home. Mara and her strike unit plunged into the ocean depths. Encased in neurogel suits, semi-living armor that clung to skin and nerve, they glided through the water like ghosts. The gel whispered across her skin, adapting to pressure, mapping currents, interpreting alien beta streams. Their descent was silent, except for breath and heartbeat. Light filtered down in strange, liquid patterns, painting their faces in pale greens and blues. Mara's HUD flickered. 30 meters to trench lip. Liam's voice cracked in. Feels like we're swimming through someone else's thoughts. She nodded. We are. Stay sharp. This ocean remembers. Above, the Revenant vanished behind layers of darkening water. Before them, the trench yawned open, a wound in the world. No coral, no fish, just depth and watching eyes. Their suits synced, minds brushing across a neural net made from salvaged Thalkai memory cortex. Each heartbeat echoed louder, each movement slower, as if the ocean wanted them to feel every second. They tried peace first. Mara stepped forward, hand raised. The translator chimed, releasing harmonic pulses encoded with Earth dialects and Thalkai speech. A soft light danced across her visor. We come not as enemies, but as children returned. No reply, only pressure, like the deep sea itself resented their presence. Suddenly, sonar slammed through them, a burst of raw sound that shook bone. Lime cried out.
Their HUD scrambled. A voice followed, guttural and ancient, seeping through water and mind. Land scourge. The word stung. Not an insult, a verdict. Mara's eyes narrowed. So much for diplomacy. Weapons stayed cold, but tension burned. The Thalkai didn't see negotiators. They saw disease in armored shells.
From the trench rose a form draped in living algae and translucent fins. Varel, not a soldier, a prophet. He floated with arms wide, voice carried by harmonic waves. His tone mourned more than warned. You are kind. You burnt sky. You bled soil. You made war with your own breath. We took the oceans to keep them alive. Mara frowned. You murdered billions. We wept for every droplet, Varel said. But your hands are stained with extinction. Ours simply held a mirror. The soldiers flinched. Some stared at him with guilt, others with fury. Varel turned his head as if listening to currents. You chased what you lost, but the tides remember everything. The trench trembled. Warning alarms shrieked, too late. Torpedoes burst from the dark. Hydrosonic explosions ripped through the formation. Liam screamed as one of the blasts sheared past. Mara turned. His figure spiraled away into blackness. She dove. Liam! Only debris. A torn neural gel sleeve. The rest was gone. Static crackled through the comms. Bodies twisted in the current. Mara fought rising panic. Then silence. Real, deep silence. The kind that follows death. Mara clutched the sleeve to her chest. Rage boiled beneath her grief. They call this land scourge, but they turned this place into a grave. They rose to the negotiation dock, a glowing structure of shell and biometal perched on a floating reef. Ambassador Chen stepped forward, bearing Earth's emblem, still believing peace was possible. He bowed. We seek understanding. A ripple, a flash, a pulse from the reef too fast to warn, too quiet to trace. Chen's visor cracked. Blood bloomed like ink. He fell without a word. Panic spread. Soldiers raised weapons, but no enemy showed. Just still water and disbelief. Was it sanctioned or sabotage? Someone asked. Mara didn't answer. She stared at the floating corpse. Something broke inside her. In orbit, the answer waited. Project Leviathan, a machine buried in Earth's final orbital station, built in silence, capable of turning ocean to vapor, a doomsday reshaped for revenge. The directive came coded in red. Authorization granted. Activate at will. Mara stared at the screen. Her hands trembled. To kill a world. To erase a species. Not out of hate, but necessity. Varel's words haunted her. The tides remember. So would she. The Revenant broke the surface, Leviathan's signal pulsing from its commery. Mara gave the order. One final breath. One final thought. Let them remember this too. The oceans below rippled unnaturally. Steam, shockwaves. The sea turned to vapor and expanding rings. Thalkai ships burst from below, too late. Crimson clouds boiled. Storms cracked open. The world screamed. Mara closed her eyes, not in victory, but in silence. For Earth, for Liam, for everything the tide had taken. The artificial sunlight poured across the barren wastes of New Mumbai. The domes hummed with recycled warmth, trying to pretend that Earth hadn't correct. Inside a repair tent draped with solar tarps, Kiran sat with his daughter's necklace pressed between his fingers, a faded shell, dry and fragile as memory. She died choking on dust, he said, voice low. Her lungs collapsed, dried from the inside out. We had water rations, but they cut them again. 1 week too long, 1 day too long.
He stared into the sandstorm swirling beyond the dome. His grief wasn't silent, it echoed. They stole our oceans, tore it from the earth like marrow. I watched rivers vanish, lakes turn to salt flats. He looked up, eyes red, but dry. I don't want balance. I don't want justice. I want the feeling of loss burned into them. I want them to feel human. No one argued, not yet. But some shifted in their seats, unsure if Kieran was trying to reclaim the past or destroy the future. If we scorch their world, do we cleanse ours or just carry the rot with us? The room fell silent. Kieran stood across from her, arms crossed. You think this is about healing? No, it's about making them answer. Mara stepped forward, voice calm but sharp. You want to bury your grief in their graves. But after that, what then? You think your daughter comes back? He flinched. She softened slightly. We act like fire will fix what's broken, but we already burned once. We lost Earth. If we burn again, it won't be them who become monsters. Kieran's jaw clenched. They took everything. This isn't about peace. It's about memory. Mara shook her head. Then maybe the only memory left will be of us becoming the thing we hated.
A secured signal blinked on Mara's console. No encryption protocols, no demands, just a voice. Come below. The truth does not float. Varel. The Thalkai priest had spoken once before. Now he offered no threats, no defense, just an invitation. Mara hesitated. Orders forbade direct engagement. But this, it wasn't war. Not yet. Maybe this was what humanity had missed all along. She activated the reply channel. You say you have truth. Then show it. I'm coming. The currents wrapped around Mara's neurogel suit like living threads. Lights pulsed in rhythm with her breath as she followed Varel through bioluminescent tunnels of coral and stone. The pressure whispered against her ears. It wasn't hostile. It was ancient. They arrived at the sanctum, a spiraling hall of memory carved into a reef chamber. Glowing glyphs moved across the walls like migrating constellations. Above, the bones of leviathans drifted in sanctified silence. Here, Varel said, gesturing to the chamber, where our gods wept, where we remembered Earth. The chamber pulsed. Data fed into her visor, not weapons, not plans, but prayers. She stepped forward, unsure whether she was trespassing or being baptized. The holograms flickered to life, Earth's oceans through Thalkai eyes, brown shorelines, dead reefs, the last whale breaching under a gray sky. We heard the ocean scream, Varel whispered. We thought we were answering a prayer. The footage showed Thalkai vessels descending, absorbing the poisoned waters, not for greed, but to cleanse, to preserve. We did not ask. That was our sin, but Earth cried louder than any language. Mara watched, breath shallow. This wasn't conquest. It was a desperate misunderstanding. But the damage was the same. Mara surfaced in silence. The waves leapt gently against the Revenant's hull. The crew waited for answers, but she had none that fit into war plans. She walked past Kieran, past the command deck, and into her quarters. How could she explain it? The Thalkai hadn't hated them, hadn't come with fire. They came with misunderstanding. But now Earth burned with purpose, and that purpose was soaked in vengeance. Kieran broke into Mara's private logs. He watched the footage, heard Varel's voice, saw the sanctum. He didn't see peace. He saw betrayal. She went alone. She hid this from us. The crew gathered in the war room, divided. Some agreed with Mara, others looked to Kieran, fists clenched. She wants to forgive them, while our planet still bleeds. He slammed his fist down. If she won't do what needs to be done, I will. No one stopped him.
Deep within the Revenant, locked behind retinal scans and failsafes, slept Earth's final weapon, Project Leviathan. Kieran bypassed every lock, every warning. The console glowed red. "No more chances," he whispered. "No more forgiveness." He pressed the command. Above Thalkar, the oceans trembled. Below, vents opened like jaws. Fire spilled upward, steam, earthquake, thunder from the sea. From space, the water boiled in pulses. Virel looked to the sky. So this is what it feels like to drown in silence. The humans watched, Mara too. She screamed, but it was too late. This time, the fire came from below. The terraformer's ignition was not a moment, it was a rupture. Thalkar's sky cracked open like glass under pressure. 1 second, blue serenity. The next, hellfire. Oceans convulsed as if the planet itself tried to scream. Steam shot up in pillars, blackening the clouds with ash and salt. The very air turned to knives, burning and wet. Mara stood on the edge of a ridge above the equator sea. Beneath her, waves roared up, then disappeared into vapor, boiling mid-rise. From the Revenant's orbital lens, Earth's symbol flashed red. Project Leviathan had been activated. She screamed, but it was far too late. This time, the fire came from below. The domes over Thalkai ocean cities shattered like brittle eggshells. From the sky, fire rained. From the sea, poison rose. Kieran had flipped the world inside out. The oceans, once homes and highways, became traps. The air, once deadly to the Thalkai, now rushed thin. Thalkai cities didn't fall with a roar. They gurgled, walls buckling as pressure reversed. Mara's team raced to the last functioning shuttle. Inside, the rescued Thalkai priestess clung to a child. Her eyes met Mara's. No blame, no hatred, just desperation. "Pilot, go!" The shuttle blasted upward just as a dome collapsed beneath them, sending a tidal wave of flame and debris into the sky. In the cockpit, Mara gripped the controls as static filled her ears. The signal from the Revenant had gone dark. This was no longer a mission, this was survival. The Temple of Koratun stood as the last holy structure on the boiling planet. Coral spires curled upward, melting in places. The sacred pools hissed and turned black. Inside, Mara staggered forward, coughing, eyes burning. "Virel!" He appeared through smoke, robes soaked and torn, clutching a crumbling relic. "You came back," he rasped. "I made a promise." A quake split the floor. Coral beams shattered. A glass wall exploded, shards flying like razors. Virel lunged, tackling Mara to the floor, shielding her with his body. Blood bloomed from his back, vivid against pale skin. "You still don't understand," he whispered. "Forgiveness is heavier than water. Now carry it." His breath left him with the weight of centuries. The Caldera's hangar was flooded with chaos when Mara arrived. Alarms blaring, medics yelling. She pushed past them, up the ramp, onto the bridge, and stopped cold. Every monitor showed Karen's face. "Kieran, you left Earth. I stayed. You negotiated while they drowned our children. You betrayed them, Mara." Mara's voice was a quiet storm. "And what are you now? A savior or just another tyrant playing God?" He didn't answer. The screen cut to black. The bridge erupted with shouts as Mara stepped into command. Weapons were raised by both sides. Kieran arrived, flanked by loyalists. Blood smeared his knuckles. "Kieran, you should have stayed on Thalkar." "Mara, and you should have stayed human." He charged. Fists collided, bones cracked, sparks flew from shattered consoles. The crew froze, watching two legends, one born of grief, the other of guilt, tear each other apart. In the end, Mara stood, battered and bleeding. Chiron lay at her feet, gasping. The ship fell silent. She raised her weapon. Chiron didn't flinch. Chiron, do it, if that makes you whole. But her finger trembled. Mara, if we kill our own to feel whole, we were never whole to begin with. She turned the gun, slammed it on the floor, and walked away. That mercy echoed louder than any shot. Admiral's orders blinked on the screen. Purge remaining Thalkai. Burn the planet. Leave no witnesses. Mara stared, then deleted the message. Mara to her crew. We are not butchers. We're not their monsters. The crew hesitated. One by one, they turned to her. She typed in new coordinates. Drop aid, evacuate survivors, divert every available drone. It wasn't the order they were given. It was the one they chose. The galaxy watched. Every colony, every council. The feed was live. Mara stood before the camera, face bruised, uniform torn, voice calm. Mara, we were broken. You broke us more, but we still choose to heal. You took our oceans, so we learned to breathe fire. But even now, after everything, we choose not to become you. Let this message echo across stars. Earth remembers, Earth endures, but Earth also forgives. She stepped back. Behind her, the Caldera's insignia shimmered against the stars. Hope, pain, and the fragile power of mercy. The world of Thalkar was no longer a world. What once shimmered with sun-dappled coral reefs and sky-kissing kelp towers now stood as a scarred, broken shell. The terraformers' ignition had been swift, merciless, and final. Boiling oceans had surged into steam, ripping clouds into ribbons of fire. Where fish once sang and light filtered through water like starlight, there was only ash and silence. The Thalkai survivors barely clung to breath. Their lungs had evolved for brine and air, but the air was now poison. The bones of the planet groaned beneath collapsing tectonics. Coral cities turned to brittle dust. What was once sacred was now smoldering ruin. Mara stood at the edge of what used to be the Great Reef Temple. Her boots sank into charred kelp. The smell of scorched salt and grief filled her lungs. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She simply placed a single silver coin, etched with the Earth insignia, into the ashen sand. A marker, a memory. This wasn't survival. This was subtraction. And yet even here, among the dead, the wind carried the faintest whisper of something else. Possibility. The domes of Oceanus Prime shimmered against the red dust of Mars. Like glass bubbles preserving a dream, they rose along the horizon. Massive, self-contained aquatic habitats built by Earth's finest minds and fastest machines. The Thalkai arrived in slow waves, displaced, hollow-eyed, still slick with ash and sorrow. But inside the domes, familiar things greeted them. Salt water with near-identical salinity, reconstructed flora and fauna. Even the architecture bore resemblance to their coral towers, rebuilt in steel and bioglass. Some wept upon entering, others stared, unmoving. Mara watched as a young Thalkite girl ran to the edge of a synthetic reef and laughed. The sound broke the heavy air like sunlight through storm clouds. It wasn't healing, not yet, but it was something. Echoes of home, one elder muttered, kneeling beside a glowing tide pool. Yes, echoes, but real enough to matter. Mars, long seen as humanity's next frontier, had now become a cradle for two worlds. One wounded, one wary, but both alive. Inside the orbital conference hall, Earth's banners hung alongside salvaged Thalkai relics. Old met new, salt met flame. Mara sat at the head of the curved table, flanked by Earth's diplomatic envoys and Thalkai elders who had watched their world dissolve. Her voice, once sharpened by battle, now carried the weight of compromise. "We did not come to conquer," she began. "We came to correct." An elder named Varun narrowed his silver eyes. "And how do you unburn a sea?" "You don't," Mara answered softly.
You build a new one, together. The silence that followed was thick, but not hostile. It was the silence of wounds, cautiously inspected. Talks continued for days. Water rights, migration plans, ecological restoration. Every sentence balanced on trust, and that trust was frayed. But no weapons were drawn, no threats whispered. This time, the war was with words, and Mara fought to win peace. Mara stood before the mirror in her quarters, still dressed in formal black. Her eyes were rimmed red, not from tears, but from the ache of command. Earth had won something, yes, a place in galactic discourse. A strange sort of respect. But that respect came with stares, expectations, and whispers of fear. Mara the Flame, they called her, breaker of oceans. She didn't ask for the title, but she carried it. In her hand, a data crystal flickered with messages from Earth's council, orders, praise, and subtle warnings. The balance of power had shifted. Humanity was no longer a minor species begging for a seat. It was the table now, and Mara was the face of it. But at what cost? She touched the coin around her neck, silver, ash-stained, and warm from skin. History remembers the loudest voices, she murmured. I just hope it hears the quiet ones too. In the central dome of Oceanus Prime, a new chamber was born, a round room, echoing both Earth's Senate and the Thalkai sacred circles. Elders and envoys gathered. The proposal was simple. A shared council co-led by human and Thalkai representatives to govern water rights across Mars, Earth, and surviving colonies. We cannot undo the destruction, but we can prevent the next, said Elder Shelkor. All eyes turned to Mara. We ask you to lead, not as a soldier, as a keeper of balance. Mara's throat tightened. Leadership meant more sacrifice, more nights without sleep, more weight pressing on her soul. But it also meant purpose. She nodded slowly. Then let this council begin with a promise. No more boiling skies, no more drowned cities, only water, shared. That night, alone in her quarters, Mara sat on the floor. Outside, the ocean dome shimmered with bioluminescent coral. Inside, silence held her like a blanket of gravity. She poured a single cup of salt water and placed it before her. A ritual, half earth, half Thalkai. For Varel, for the fallen, for the lost seas. Her hands trembled. Leadership had come. Victory had come. But peace? Peace always came last. In a shallow tide pool on Mars, a Thalkai boy and a human girl laughed as they chased glowing fish. Their reflections merged in the water. Two species, two stories, one chance at something better. A human engineer watched from the edge. Funny, he said. It smells like Earth. An elder nodded beside him. Maybe it is. A new Earth, grown from ashes and tides. In the distance, Mara stood beneath the rising Martian sun, watching as old pain gave way to fragile joy. For now, it was enough. And maybe, just maybe, it would last. Mara's boots echoed softly against the polished black floors of the Sea Museum, deep inside New Earth Station. The corridor was dim, lit only by the soft blue glow of simulated ocean currents that rolled lazily across the curved glass walls. Above her, holographic whales glided through digital currents. The ceiling shimmered with light patterns that mimicked sunlight cutting through water, casting ripples across her face. Mara stopped before a large transparent wall. It flickered to life, showing a full-scale view of Earth's oceans as they once were, deep, wild, and limitless. She swallowed hard. This was more than history. It was memory. It was mourning, and it was a mirror of everything they'd fought for and lost. The planet they once called home, now a graveyard of salt and silence.
She ran her hand across the curved edge of the display, warm to the touch, meant to comfort, but comfort couldn't rewrite what was gone. The room darkened further. A soft hum vibrated through the floor as the central hologram bloomed to life. It rose like mist, forming the shape of a living ocean in midair. Tides crashed, rain fell, whales sang. A voice, old, wise, and calm, narrated the scene. Before the Exodus, there was the deep. It covered 70% of Earth. It gave life. It demanded respect. And when we lost it, we lost a part of ourselves.
Mara's hands clenched at her sides. She remembered the moment Earth's oceans died, not in one blow, but over decades. Poisoned, boiled, consumed. Humanity fled, not as conquerors, but as survivors. She had commanded ships, led battles, and watched 1,000 worlds burn. But nothing had ever broken her like the silent death of Earth's oceans. Behind the digital waves, a whale breached in slow motion, droplets scattering like diamonds. A child's laughter echoed faintly in the recording. Tears welled in Mara's eyes, not because of the beauty, but because it was now just data, a ghost. A soft noise stirred her. She turned slightly. Behind there stood a Thalkai child, thin, translucent-skinned, their tendrils faintly glowing in the museum's light. No words, no translator drone. They just watched the ocean with her, wide eyes filled with something very human, loss, understanding. For a long moment, the path between their species faded. The war, the betrayal, the shattered homeworlds. Just two souls staring at what neither of them could ever touch again. The Thalkai child stepped forward and reached out, not to touch her, but the image of the whale. It swam toward them, then vanished in blue mist. Mara whispered, "They were real, once." The Thalkai child nodded once, slowly, silently, and stayed. As Mara turned to leave, the hologram faded into stars. A final voiceover filled the chamber. They took our oceans, we took their planet, but somewhere in between, we found meaning in what was lost. Mara stopped at the doorway, heart pounding. That phrase had been hers, spoken once in anger, then again in sorrow. Now it was etched into the museum's walls, a permanent scar and promise. She looked back one last time. The Thalkai child was still there watching the stars flicker into nothing. And for the first time in years, Mara didn't feel like a commander, or a soldier, or even a survivor. She felt human, and that was enough.